Alrighty, good day and welcome, future gearheads. My name is Mr. JB, and today we've got something a little bit different. Today we're going over how you can become an automotive technician in Ontario. I myself am a fully licensed 310S technician. I'm a Transportation Technologies Teacher, so I teach auto shop in a high school. And we're going to go through how do you do this as a career? What do you do for school? What do you do for post-graduation? And kind of what should your path be? And what are some options and some variations for what that is? Starting off with whatever it is that you choose, I've just got a website here from a different school board than I teach, and kind of going over what the courses are. Now they offer TIJ, TTJ, 2O, 3C, and 4C, and kind of what the differences are is usually grade 9 is more of an introductory. Usually it's not entirely focused as automotive. It is an option for you to see some different trades. Sometimes they do a rotation. It's different for each school board and each school in general. TTJ 2O is grade 10. That's usually where you get the full period, the full time working on vehicles and splitting among theoretical or practical time depending on how your instructor does it. This will give you a little bit more of your hands-on to make you understand if this is a career choice, something you want to navigate through or something you want to actually continue to do. Following from that, we head into our TTJ 3C and 4C, which just means your grade 11 and 12 transportation technologies or grade 11 and 12 auto shop, where you will get a little bit more of an idea of what it is you might be doing when you're in the trade. Now, as you're going through high school, there's a few different variations of what you can do apart from these. Not every school offers auto, so what do you do if you don't have that option? A lot of schools as an alternative will offer something called co-op education, and co-op means that you go off for 2 periods or 4 periods to a place. That could be a dealership, that could be a everyday garage. Now if you're thinking of a different trade, that's also something you can totally do, and then you can kind of get that hands-on experience of actually working in a garage. You might be working for, down by my school, we send a lot of students to a Hyundai dealership. And during that time, they do a lot of recalls, oil changes, tires, brakes. They do a lot of different things, and they're in that environment. Sometimes they're just there for the morning or just there for the afternoon, whether it be a 2-period morning or 2-period afternoon, or they could be there for all 4 periods throughout the entire school day. And while you're doing that, you'll have some school assignments you need to do and some logs and stuff like that. But that's another great way for you to kind of get experience and an idea of, is this a career I want to do following high school? Your other option is, if you've decided this is for you, you've got one more variation of something you can do when you're in high school. That's called the OYAP, Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program. Now with that, in your final year of grade 12, you'll have this opportunity. You apply for it in grade 11, and you have to go through a bit of an application process. You have to find a couple references. A couple teachers are usually the best option, especially if you've got tech teachers like myself. You give them their information, and they have to do a little online review of you and your habits and things like that. And then there's a little bit of an interview process, and hopefully you get it for whichever it is, the trade that you're choosing. Specifically, we're just going to be talking about automotive. So if you end up getting that, when you end up figuring this out and you get accepted, your second semester of grade 12, you're no longer in your high school. You are 3 days at your college. So for us, we have Durham College as one of our places. Some places might have Centennial. There's lots of other schools and areas around that have different trade schools. You'll be going off to that trade school 3 days a week. You'll be there pretty much full time as a student. You're there for like 6 or 8 hours. And then your other 2 days of the week, you are off in the workforce. You're doing whatever it is. You are doing an apprenticeship. You're at a garage. You're at a dealership. You're at a place getting this experience. And as you go through school, this is your first year of apprenticeship. You're doing that while you're in high school. So as soon as you finish in June, you finish your grade 12 year, you're now a second-year automotive apprentice. That means when you continue in September, if that place is willing to keep you, you're continuing your second year of trade school, and awesome, you are now a second-year apprentice. You're a year ahead of everyone else. You have experience before you can get experience, which is just awesome. So if that is something that interests you, OYAP is the greatest route that you could probably choose if you're considering this. And if you decide you don't because you've been in it, you've had a year of school, at least you didn't spend a whole bunch of money because the government pays for all of that. You just have to pay for your PPE and getting to and from these workplaces and school, but they pay for your textbooks, they pay for your schooling. and that's awesome. So if you're thinking about that, I definitely consider hopping onto the OYAP train. Now, if let's say you're at a high school or you finished high school, what are your options? What can you do? What are some areas you can go into? Now, when you're trying to find a job as an apprentice, there's a couple different variations of how you're going to do that. When we're talking about automotive, strictly a 310S, which means a small car and truck. You're working at like your average car dealership down the road, not heavy trucks and things like that. You can go knock on some doors and see if you can find somebody to hire you on or to take you. You can look on Indeed. I've got an Indeed posting up here, just looking in the Toronto area. There's 5 places looking for an apprentice right now. And really it's just applying, knocking on doors. Now, obviously they want you to have experience. Most places do. And for a lot of places, they'll hire you on as an apprentice, and you might not get to go to school your first year because they want to see how well you work out, how well you mesh in the work environment to determine, is this a place that we want you to work? Does that employer want you to work for them? Because they're going to be investing a lot of time and money into getting you to be a fully licensed mechanic, fully licensed trade person by the time you are all set and done. So let's say you've chosen your place, you've knocked on doors, you go and now you are approved, you're accepted, you are going into we're just going to say Hyundai because it's the one by my school. You're going to Hyundai for your apprenticeship. You're going in for your first year. You get registered. Somebody from the College of Trades. Sorry, it's not the College of Trades anymore. They just ended up switching out. Skilled Trades Ontario. They now took over for the College of Trades. Skilled Trades Ontario is going to show up. They're going to sign you up as a registered apprentice. They're going to give you a big booklet, and with that booklet, you have to get a bunch of signatures and get those done throughout your time. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But they've registered you. Now that following September or that next September, whichever, you're going to get a call from your closest school that's going to offer your experience. Now, in terms of your schooling, you have 2 variations of what you can do for this style of apprenticeship, with you knocking on doors and stuff like that. With this, you've got day release and you have block release. Now, when you're looking at block release versus day release, one of them you're going for a block, which is usually in January till sometime around March. It's 8 to 10 weeks, and you are in school for a full school day. That means 8 to 10 weeks. You're not getting paid because your apprenticeships are normally paid. So that's something to consider. When you're doing a day release, that just means that one day every week from September until late May, early June, you are off at school. The other 4 days, or if your garage is open on Saturdays, 5 days, you're working. So you're making money that entire time. You're never missing out on any funds, depending on what's going on in your life. So that can be a positive, that can be a negative. Now, with trade school, you need to earn a minimum of 70% to move on to your next year. If you don't move on, you have to repeat that year and hopefully get your 70%. And then you kind of continue on and go through all of your years, your 3 years in automotive. And then when you're done, you become a journey person candidate, meaning that you can now go write your license. Now, depending on which route you did, either way, you still get there at the same amount of time. In automotive, at least here in Ontario, it's not done by hours. It is done by your years of school experience. So you've completed your years. You're ready. You're a journey person candidate. It's time for you to book your license and your examination. When you're doing that, you're going to go to the Skills Ontario website and you need to book your examination. But before you've done that, there's one more bit I got to talk about. I don't want to get too far apart from our different types of apprenticeship. Now, when we're talking about our apprenticeships, there's also pre-apprenticeship. So you can go to schools and sometimes they offer a pre-apprenticeship where you go for a year or 2 years. Maybe your high school didn't offer you any sort of automotive and you need to get some kind of experience. You can do a pre-apprenticeship program, which is a year or 2 years depending on what your trades college is, and that'll get you some hands-on experience. That'll get you potentially a co-op through there. Maybe your school didn't offer it, and that's a couple ways that you can end up getting your experience before you head out into the trade, and then you kind of know something which might make you feel a little bit more confident walking through the door. Now, as you complete each one of your years, complete year 1, year 2, you go get your trades license, there's a bunch of incentive grants. So the apprenticeship incentive grant, you've got 2 of them. They just closed the women's one. It's not available right now, but it could be, depending on when you're watching this video. Just as of today in 2024, it's not available. Now, when you graduate your first year, you apply for this grant, you get a $1,000 grant. When you do your second year, you get another $1,000 grant. You don't get anything for your third year, but you do get one when you end up fully licensed. So when you go and do your license and you pass your test, you pass your certificate of qualification, you apply, you get a $2,000 grant. When all is said and done, when you're looking at the prices between looking at your block release and day release is around $700 or $800 at this point in time when I'm making this video, and block release is closer to $4,500. Now that's a big difference in price. If you're doing just day release, it means that those government grants are pretty much almost covering all of what your school cost itself and nearly your textbook. Whereas if you're doing your block release, not quite. But depending on your learning style, maybe block release will be better because you're getting all of that information all at once, whereas day release, you're only getting that theory or those theoretical chunks once a week, and it's pretty easy to lose those. That is the type of schooling that I did, so it's just an alternative way for you to go about your education. Now, back to us talking about going and writing your exam. So you've applied for your exam and now you're ready to go. If you go onto the Skilled Trades Ontario website, there's a bunch of stuff for exam prep guides that you can kind of walk to. It talks to you about scheduling, talks to you about kind of preparing yourself. It gives you just some resources on ways to prepare for what's going on when you go and do this test, which is super helpful stuff, super important information. So it's a good idea to review that and look that over so you know what's happening for you when you're ready to go write this exam. Now, when you go in, you get 100 multiple choice, multiple guess questions for your automotive, and there's several different tests. Now, depending on what schooling you went to, usually in your final year, they give you your textbook, you buy that, and it comes with a booklet that will help you with exam prep questions. They're fairly similar for the most part, which will give you a good start to preparing yourself for your examination. Now, I believe your exam's around $150 when you go to write it. You book it, you walk in, and this is where that book we talked about earlier comes into play. You will end up getting something that looks kind of similar to this. Now, it'll have your name in it, it'll be a book. This is what the person from the Skilled Trades Ontario dropped you off when you became your apprentice. In it, there'll be tasks that say, for example, able to diagnose engine problems and able to repair and able to visually inspect various things. As you're going through and you're doing these tasks with your apprenticeship, you sign it and your head journey person, whoever you're under, is going to sign it as well. When you go to write your licensing exam, they're going to quickly flip through this book and make sure that it's pretty much filled with signatures. If it's not, you have to reschedule your test. So just make sure that you end up filling this out prior to you booking your exam. Now that your exam's booked, you've got this signed, you've got all this stuff done in this book, you walk in, you pay them your $150, you sit down. Now, when you're writing your exam, you're going to be writing your exam with lots of other people doing their exams. Chances are they're not going to be just automotive. You might be with hairstylists, you might be with electricians or plumbers or various trades. So if you think you're going to sneak your eyes over and go, ooh, I wonder what they're writing, you're probably not going to get the right answers. So just make sure that you're not paying attention to anybody else. Take the time you need, double read, triple read to make sure that things are good. When you're writing your exam, I believe the minimum is 70% to pass. 80% is getting your red seal, meaning that your trade is now able to be transferred to different provinces across Ontario, or across Canada, sorry. So that means you can go to Quebec, you can go to Saskatchewan, you can go to BC, and your trades license still holds. If you don't have that red seal, you have to do equivalency testing when you get there. So just something to consider. Now that you've got your apprenticeship all out of the way, you've got your fully licensed, you've written your test, you've got your stuff in the mail, now you can apply for that $2,000 grant and you can end up getting your money. Now, when you're looking at choosing a place for an apprenticeship, this is a little different. This is kind of a little late, but when you're choosing your place for your apprenticeship, you want to consider what it is you want to do. Now, there's always so-and-so's garage down the street, or there's a dealership. When you're thinking about those two options, you want to think about your future. This is kind of just some tidbit information that someone told me, but I didn't really listen to because I was too young and didn't really care. When you're working for so-and-so's garage, you're probably paid by the hour. And that's a good thing, depending on how busy your shop is. It means if it's not super busy, you're still getting paid. When you're looking at the stuff that comes in, you're working with more of the rusty, the crusty, the older, more worn stuff. And there's not going to be a whole lot of training opportunities. And as EVs start to phase in and other technology phases in, your so-and-so's garage might be becoming a little bit more obsolete and they might be slowing down. Whereas if you're looking at a dealership, you might not be slowing down in that same way because you're dealing with that newer technology. You're always getting training. They offer training at dealerships so that way you can stay on top of these current technologies and make sure that you are good with whatever it is that you're choosing. Now, that's great and that's fantastic, but dealerships have a downside as well. When you're going there for an apprenticeship and you're signing up, they really want oil change people. And they're happy to just have you be an oil change person for your entire apprenticeship, which is not what they're supposed to do, but that's what they like to do. Or they like to tell you and promise you an apprenticeship and keep you in as an oil change person for 2 or 3 years. I've seen it more than enough times. And then all of a sudden you don't get an apprenticeship, which absolute load of garbage. So if someone has hired you and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, your toolbox has wheels for a reason. Take it and move on. Now, when you're working for that dealership, once you become licensed, they're going to try and throw what's called flat rate at you. Now, that's a pretty scary word for some folks if they're in the trade. Some people love it, some people hate it. What it means is you're paid by the job. So I always give this example to my students. When you're doing a brake job, the average brake job per axle is around 2 hours. If it takes you 30 minutes to do it because you're just Vin Diesel himself, cool, you still get paid for 2 hours. When something goes wrong and you snap a bolt and you don't get to charge for any extra time and you're 6.5 hours into this brake job because everything has gone wrong, you're still only paid for 2 hours. Now, if no jobs come in the door that day, you showed up to work, you drove to work, you didn't make a dime. When after Christmas or around Christmas and January, when no one has any money because all their bills are through the roof, the garages are slow, meaning you're not making a whole lot of money for a little while. So that's something you need to consider as well, what you're doing with your money to be prepared for that time. Now, also when you're dealing with dealerships, you're dealing with warranty work. And the phrase is, warranty work is criminal because it doesn't pay. There's tons of jobs that I used to do for warranty. Some things, for example, I'll just say like pulling an engine out and swapping an engine. Warranty pays 8 hours for you to pull this engine and then throw a new one in. By no means is that anywhere near what warranty should be paying. You can try and find ways and loopholes around it to get yourself some more money, but it's really challenging. So when you start dealing with some of those warranty things during flat rate, it doesn't pay that great. That's something else to consider. Now, you'll always have some work because there's always going to be some warranty things or recalls or whatever, but they don't always end up paying the bills as great as they should, but some work is still better than no work. Just something you should consider depending on where it is that you're going for whatever trade it is that you are considering. Now, with that, that's a ton of information. I know that this isn't going to cover everything. There's going to be millions of questions and millions of things. If you have questions or you're interested in another trade or anything like that, throw it in the comments below. I'd super happy to answer questions. This is what I do for a living. I teach kids about these things. I am an automotive teacher. So if you have any questions, please reach out. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and I hope that you learned something. Have a wonderful day. Take care and be safe.